So today the Maple Leafs face off against the Florida Panthers in Florida for Game 3 after going down in the second round series 2-0. Now this is a big surprise to a lot of hockey fans because I think the Leafs were heavily favored going into this series, and now it seems a little bit bleak for them, as if they lose this third game, they're basically done for when it comes to their series against the Panthers. But today I don't want to focus too much on this playoff series, and rather I want to talk about the Leafs' future and the potential different look that this team may have if they end up losing this series, especially if it's in about 4 or 5 games. So thinking about the current roster, the Leafs are pretty stacked, especially with some of those trade deadline moves that they made. But I actually think it's the bigger stars like Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares that are in more question than you would think, especially given their contracts and how they're pretty much locked up for the next couple years. But focusing on Auston Matthews especially, this guy isn't from Toronto, and how much losing do you think he can take before he just decides to get out of the game before it's too late, before he inks that big long-term contract like McDavid did? So thinking about Auston Matthews, I think if he does not win in this round, you might see him go somewhere like Arizona if they end up getting a guy like Connor Bedard. I mean, could you see Auston Matthews sticking around with the Leafs after this season if they end up getting swept by the Florida Panthers? Do you think he would rather go back with Mitch Marner, John Tavares, Willie Nylander, or maybe he just thinks a change of scenery might give him a better chance at hoisting the cup, especially because his competition out there like Matthew Tkachuk, Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, they're all right there with him, and there's just this thing hanging over the Maple Leafs that does not let them get through the playoffs or even deep in the playoffs, and by losing to the Panthers, that might just be the last thing for Auston Matthews to handle before he gets out of there. And if you're thinking about the Leafs long term, they're not going to be able to re-sign guys like Ryan O'Reilly, and they may lose a bunch of their role players like Michael Bunting and maybe Morgan Riley down the road, especially their goaltending too, which is just a huge question mark for that club. And if I'm Auston Matthews, I'm looking at this organization and saying, there's a lot here for me, but there might be a lot somewhere else. Maybe if I go sign with a really big organization, go play with another superstar like Connor McDavid's doing, sort of like the NBA format where superstars pair up. But I don't know, if I'm looking at this from Auston Matthews' perspective, this is a really big series for my career, because then you have to make the choice of whether or not you want to stay in Toronto or if you want to end up going somewhere else where you may or may not have a better chance of winning the Stanley Cup. But I want to know what you guys think. Leafs organization, Leafs fan base, do you guys think Auston Matthews will be here in the long term if the Maple Leafs get swept in 4 or 5? Or do you think that he'll stick around no matter what because this is the best team and best chance for him to win a Stanley Cup? Make sure you guys comment your opinions, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'll see you in the next one.